Good day. Today I'm going to discuss the chapter 4 Internal Controls and Risk in the IT System. So I want to apologize for any unnecessary noises you might hear from this video. So this chapter provides an overview of control in the IT system, the risk that these controls are intended to reduce, and the important hardware and software components of IT system to which control should be applied. So let's start. So the business processes involves the revenue processes, expenditure processes, conversion processes, administrative processes, and the data that results from these are recorded, monitored, and stored in the IT system. And the American Institute of Certified Public Accountant Trust Service Principle categorized the IT controls and the IT risk into 5 categories. First is security, which means the system is protected against unauthorized access. Availability, that means the system is available for operation and use as committed or agreed. Processing integrity, that the system process is complete, accurate, timely, and authorized. Confidentiality is the information defined as confidential is protected as committed or agreed, and online privacy, that the personal information obtained as a result of e-commerce is collected, used, disclosed, and retained as committed or agreed. The online privacy applies only to e-business, while the other 4 categories are used to describe the concept of control and the risk in the IT system. Then the IT system exposure or entry points that make the organization susceptible to the IT risk, and the exposure areas in the IT system are the operating system. It is the software that controls the basic input and output activities of the computer. Database is where all or most accounting record and data are stored in electronic form. The database management system or DBMS is a software system that manages the interface between many users and the database. A local area network is a computer network covering a small geographic area, while the wide area network is a group of local area network connected to each other to cover a wider geographic area. Then the wireless network is a signal that is transmitted through the air rather than over cable, similar to radio signals. Then internet in the World Wide Web. Telecommuting workers and mobile workers are where a significant number of employees work from home using some type of network connection to the office. Then electronic data interchange or ADI is the company-to-company transfer of standard business document in electronic form, and the last is application software. From the early days of computer use in accounting, internal control for computer-based system has been described as being of 2 types. First is general control and the application control. General control apply overall to the IT accounting system. They are not restricted to any particular accounting application, and the application control is intended to ensure that the input and processing are accurate and complete, and that the output are properly distributed, controlled, and disposed of. So let's go back to general control. General control are divided into 5 broad categories. First is authentication of user and limiting unauthorized access. The authentication of user is a process or procedure in the IT system to ensure that the person accessing the IT system is a valid and unauthorized user, and user may be authenticated in one or several ways. The IT system should require the user to log in with a user ID and a password, which user ID must be unique for each user to increase the effectiveness of login restriction, and the password that must be a secret set of characters that identify the user as the authentic owner of the associated user ID. And this can be further strengthened by the use of a smart card, which is a credit card device which is a credit card-sized device with an integrated circuit that displays a constantly changing ID code. And a newer technology to authenticate user is a security token, which is plugged into the USB port and eliminate the need for a card reader. Biometric device can also be used, which allow only the authorized user to log in according to his or her unique fingerprint, iris, voice, or facial feature. There are also additional controls to authenticate user and limiting unauthorized access. The computer log is a record of all the date, time, and the uses for each user, and any abnormalities in the login or use can be examined more in detail. While the non-repudiation of user means that the user cannot deny any particular act that he or she did in the IT system. So after the user log in with a valid authentication, the access granted with the IT system should be limited to the user profile, authority table, and configuration table. The user profile is established for every authorized user, and authority table contain a list of valid authorized user and access level granted to each one, and the configuration table that contains the appropriate setup and security setting. The second category of general control is hacking and other network break-in. So to avoid unauthorized access, IT system should employ one or more firewall, which is a hardware, software, or a combination of both that is designed to examine all data passing through it, and if the firewall detects an unauthorized attempt to pass data, it prevents the flow of such data. Since this authorization and access control cannot be completely effective, that there may be possibility that unauthorized access will occur, to limit potential damage of unauthorized access, sensitive data should be encrypted. And encryption is the process of converting data into secret code referred to as ciphertext. There are two types of encryption, the symmetric and the public key encryption. Symmetric encryption uses a single encryption key that must be used to encrypt data and also to decode the encrypted data. And the public key encryption uses both the public and the private key. There are also encryption method. The word equivalency privacy is an encryption method that uses wireless network equipment such as access point and wireless network card. And because WIP has proven to be susceptible to hacking, the industry has developed a new wireless network security system called the Wireless Protected Access, or the WPA, which has improved encryption and user authentication that can check to see whether encryption key have been tampered with. Another is Unique Server Set Identifier, or SSID, which is a password that is passed between the sending and the receiving node of a wireless network. And for the employee to access the IT system from location outside the organization, they use the VPN, or the Virtual Private Network, where the employee connect to the IT system through a public network such as the internet. The Secure Socket Layer is a communication protocol built into web server and browser software that encrypt data transferred on that website. IT system operations are also threatened by many network break-in attempts that are undertaken to insert viruses and worms. So to avoid destruction of data program and to maintain operation of the IT system, an organization must employ the antivirus software, which continually scan the system for viruses and worms and either deletes or quarantine them. And since there are people that continuously attempt to access the IT system in an unauthorized manner, an organization must maintain a plan to continually monitor and test the vulnerability of its IT system to unauthorized access. The penetration testing is the process of legitimately attempting to hack into an IT system to find whether weaknesses can be exploited by an authorized hacker. Vulnerability assessment is a process of proactively examining the IT system for weaknesses that can be exploited by hacker. viruses, or malicious employees. The intrusion detection system are specific software tool that monitor data flow within a network and alert the IT staff to hacking attempt or other unauthorized access attempt. Then the third category of general control is organization structure. The overall development and operation of the IT system should be governed by the IT Governance Committee, where the segregation of the duties are under the system analyst who analyze and design the IT system, and the programmer who actually write the software using a programming language, operations personnel or employee who are responsible for processing operating data, and the database administrator develop and maintain the database and ensure the adequate control over data within the database. The IT Governance Committee should also develop policies and assign responsibility to the system development lifecycle. Is a systematic step undertaken to plan, prioritize, authorize, oversee, test, and implement large-scale changes to the IT system. The fourth category of general control is physical environment and physical security of the system. The physical environment include the backup system, the operating environment, and the location. And the physical security, which is computer system, should have both the uninterruptible power supply and emergency power supply. Uninterruptible power supply includes a battery to maintain power in the events of a power outage in order for the computer running for several minutes after the power outage. Then emergency power supply is an alternative power supply that provides electric power in the event that a main source is lost. The fifth category of general control is business continuity. Business continuity plan is a broad type of planning that focuses on key personnel, resources, and activities critical to business continuance. There are two parts of business continuity related to IT system. First is a strategy for backup and restoration of IT system. Second is disaster recovery plan. The disaster recovery plan is the plan for the continuance of the IT system after the disaster, and the strategy for backup is the redundant server, where two or more computer network or data server that can run identical process are maintained in the same date, and the redundant arrays of independent disk is a setup of two or more disks that are exact mirror image, and the offsite backup, an additional copy of the backup file is stored in an offsite location. And each of these general control, these five, including this five category, are intended to prevent, detect, or correct risk and exposure in the IT system. Then let's go back to application control. Application control or internal control over the input, processing, and output of accounting application. Input control are intended to ensure the accuracy and completeness of data procedure and the resulting data. It has four types. The source document is a paper form used to capture and record original data of an accounting transaction. The procedure to collect and prepare source document are called data preparation procedure. And the input validation check includes the field check that examine a field to determine whether the appropriate type, alpha or numeric of data was entered. And validity check examine a field to ensure that the data in the field is valid compared with the pre-existing list of acceptable values. The limit check has only the upper limit and there is no need for the lower limit in the field. The range check has both the upper limit and the lower limit. Then the reasonable check is it comprises the value in a field with those fields to which it is related to determine whether the value is reasonable. Completeness check assesses the critical field in an input screen to make sure that a value is in those fields. The sign check that examine a field to determine that it has the appropriate sign, positive or negative, the sequence check that ensures that the batch of transaction is sorted in order, and a self-checking digit. A self-checking digit is an extra digit added to a coded identification number determined by a mathematical algorithm. Then the control total has the three types: the record count, which are simple count of the number of record processed; the batch total, or total of financial data such as gross pay or total federal tax deduction; and the hash total, or total of fields that have no apparent logical reason to be added. The second application control, a processing control, are intended to ensure the accuracy and completeness of processing that occurs in a counting application, and many input control also serve as processing control. The control total, which include the record count, the batch total, and the hash total, are reconciled during the stage of processing control to verify the accuracy and completeness of the processing, and the reconciliation of that control totals is at various stages of the processing control are called the run-to-run control totals. And the third application control is the output control. The two primary objectives of the output control is first to ensure the accuracy and completeness of the output, and second is to properly manage the safekeeping of output report to ascertain that security and confidentiality of the information is maintained. Next is the case analysis, where we choose network break-in at Stratfor and TJ Maxx. So, in Christmas Day in 2011, a loosely organized hacker group called Anonymous hacked into the US data security firm Stratfor based in Austin, Texas, and a few days later, Anonymous revealed that it had collected 200 gigabytes of data from Stratfor, including clients' credit card number, email addresses, password, and mailing addresses. It posted the credit card number of over 30,000 Stratfor clients. In 2007, a hack of TJ Maxx computer resulted in over 46 million credit card and debit card number stolen. Some of the same hacker also hacked into Heartland payment system and stole 130 million credit card numbers. One of the ringleader of the group, Albert Gonzalez, was sentenced to 2 consecutive 20-year prison terms, and this kind of computer security threat continued to even as companies try to prevent them. And as of 2011, the average cost of cybercrime to large US company is $3.8 million per year. While it will never be possible to prevent all such data While it will never be possible to prevent all such computer network breaches, company must implement the proper control to try to reduce the chance of computer security problem. Control are necessary to protect company and customer data, and this chapter provide the inherent risk in IT system and the IT control that should be implemented to reduce them. Hacking has made a big headline in recent years, and business owners had become increasingly aware of this threat. In a survey conducted in 2014 and asked over 9,600 IT executives globally whether they're experiencing hacking in the past year, 41% of the respondents has experienced at least one security incident during the year, and cybercrime cost many organizations millions of dollars every year. Strategic forecasting, known as Stratfor, is a private firm that provides an analysis of geopolitical and security issues to clients who range from U.S. military to large corporations. Face an intrusion by hacker that compromised client data and credit card number. In an investigation conducted by Verizon, it found that there was no file integrity monitoring. Stratfor had no firewall, no antivirus protection, and no security monitoring. No device was used to filter any ingress and egress traffic, allowing any data into and out of the system environment unrestricted. There was no level of centralized logging to routinely monitor and analyze suspicious and/or anomalous security events. A person behind this was pled guilty on May 2013, and he is an activist and a hacker named Jeremy Hammond. In the case of TJ Maxx, they use a Frankham system and Watford system to process and store debit and credit card, check, and unreceipt merchandise return transaction of customer. The data was encrypted before it was stored using the encryption software, acquired equivalency privacy, and investigation revealed that the intruder had access to the decryption tool and that data was primarily stolen through a hacking technique called skimming. It was revealed that the intruder used USB driver located at the back of this terminal to load software and that the firewall was not strong enough to defend against the malicious traffic coming from the chaos. Improperly secured Wi-Fi network was another failure point through which hacker decode data streaming between handheld devices and store computer and led to hacking of the central database. In the Philippines, personal informations of more than 50 million Filipinos have been exposed in a breach of Philippines Electoral Commission. The website of the Commission on Election (COMELEC) was initially hacked on March 27, 2016 by a group identified itself as Anonymous Philippines. The homepage was defaced with a message accusing COMELEC of not doing enough to ensure the security of voting machines used during the country 2016 election. On that same day, a different but related group, Lusec Pilipinas, posted an online link to what it claimed was the entire database of COMELEC containing 338 gigabytes of 75.3 million individual entries on the electoral register. Big corporations and small businesses can limit the threat of hacking with simple solution. First is use appropriate security program. Keep an up-to-date software. Software developer are constantly adjusting their code and improving the security of the system against the latest malware. Business need plenty of different security packages, but the essential includes secure socket layer, web application firewall, and website and software scanner. Second is enforce appropriate authentication. Authentication and password are important aspect of security, and you may consider two-phase authentication. And the third is secure third-party service and check their security credential and ensure you get a guarantee of an appropriate level of security. And if using cloud, ensure that the connection used to access data is secured, such as a virtual private network. And lastly, create a strong culture of cybersecurity. Protecting the company against hacker is about making a business secure possible. Business and government need to realize that spending money on IT system is a business decision rather than technology issue. Some of the recommendation to improve the system security is have a process where they can update all their critical software components and also apply any security patches. It can also help to hire white hat hacker to detect loophole in the system and fix them before actual hacker detect or exploit them. Having log monitoring and doing log analysis to detect anomaly would greatly improve the system, and put in place a training program for all the associates to not leave the terminal unattended, connect their personal device to in-store's network, or browse web from in-store computer. So that's all. Thank you for listening. I hope you learned something from me and you're all doing well. God bless. Keep safe and bye.